together. I tried to cover mostly the common questions that I got over time. So it will be a mix of topics. I tried to make some connections between them, but it's more around this. I feel that there are a lot of questions around the technical terms, like technical jargon that can confuse people sometimes. So I will start by doing some background on what is frequency and electromagnetics. Then I'll jump into the effects of electrosmog and specifically about the 5G antennas. There are some things around it that makes it a bit worse, and I would like to cover that. And
Sorry
then
to briefly interrupt, Jose.
Yeah.
Catherine, could you record? Because I can't record from my end because you're the host.
Yes, no problem. I pressed record.
It's recording. Yes, I see this.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so then I will share some tips about how to recover from EMF exposure. And I also sent a document that later, I think, Rihanna, maybe you can share. It will be a bit more comprehensive. I will just make some introduction. Okay, so let me start with explanation of what is frequency. So a frequency is basically the number of cycles of or vibrations per second. And I have in this picture an example. So if a wheel is turning and it gives like a full rotation in 2 seconds, for example, then you divide the rotation by the time and you get the number of cycles per second, then you get this number. 0.5 Hertz. The Hertz is the unit. I think this is going to be good to start, but it will let me continue. Okay, then I have here a short video. It's to show the vibrations at the molecular level, because these vibrations can be also measured. And when we have like a cyclic oscillation, then we can measure this in terms of frequency. This is another example of how we can use frequency to measure the numbers of cycles per second. Then we have some devices that we can use to measure this. It all depends on the type of oscillation that we want to measure. We can measure the vibrations in our own body. We can measure the vibrations in plants. We can measure the vibrations of molecules or electromagnetic waves. So for each of these different things, we can have different devices. I'm not going to cover that. And for example, here you see the units. When we talk about 1 gigahertz, we are talking about 1 gigavibrations or cycles per second. So the plants and our human body also have certain vibrations, like you've seen before with all the molecules, but they can vibrate in different ways. For example, the bones are a bit more dense, so the vibrations at the cellular level are going to be less, so the frequency is lower. What we say is that we have like a dominant frequency, and then this is important because if we are exposed to frequencies, we can suffer by having a dissonance effect. I will explain a bit more what this means. So this is an example. This is a video, and we'll see what is the resonance and the effect between different vibrations, different bodies. Okay, let me see if I can play it. Can you hear the sound? Maybe not.
Not at the moment, no.
Let me try again.
Well, 40 is what we tune instruments to in symphony orchestras, of the A is A440.
Yep. Yeah, so what I wanted to show here is the resonant effect. The resonance is when a certain frequency is vibrating, the other body or particles that are exposed to this vibration can also capture the vibration and change it. So in our bodies, it happens the same way. We are composed by atoms and cells, and then when we are exposed to vibrations, we can also be influenced by them. In the case of good vibrations, we can talk about the Schumann's resonance, the vibration from the Earth. This is very low frequency and low power, and this helps us to tune our bodies and also to tune the animals and even the plants. This is very important, and it's much different from the artificial sources. So when we are exposed to artificial source of vibrations, we will experience the opposite, which we call dissonance. It makes us vibrate in a different way, which is going to be harmful for us. And this is just one of the multiple aspects about it. But I think it's important to give you the context. This will be a bit more clear later on. So this is another picture where you can see the vibrations and energy of the plants in our body. So we all are electric beings, and we will be influenced by this exposure. So this is important to know, is that the artificial electromagnetic waves are really much different. Sometimes I have questions like if a given frequency is going to affect us more than another. So what I'm trying to explain here is that all artificial frequency is going to be bad in some way or other. This is the spectrum of the Schumann frequency, the Schumann resonance, and is to show how we can measure the vibrations of the Earth. But this is very low power, and you can see clear in this graph that it makes a very clear pattern. So you see it's kind of not varying too much. This is very low frequency, low power. And if we are exposed with very high frequencies or with higher power, this will be totally over, how to say, it will be overlapping this, and it will, and we will not be able to get this benefit. So this is also a very interesting aspect. So now I jump into the artificial EMF. So when we talk about Schumann's resonance, we talk about about the natural frequency, which is generated inside the caves, inside by the ocean. All these natural vibrations that will make some vibration in terms of sound and other frequencies. For example, like when we have lightning, all of this is natural, and we'll have a very clear pattern. When we start looking into the artificial waves, it's much different. This is all produced by man for specific reasons. And here is an example. We put like electric current, and then we get an effect. So these waves will be produced and directed to a special antenna. So it will have very specific characteristics that will make it that makes it very different. So you see in this example, we have the example of mobiles. So we turn on our mobile, we start talking, then we connect to an antenna, and this needs a series of beams, of electromagnetic waves that will send the energy through the antennas, and then it will reach the remote end. But the way we pass these waves and how we pass the information is going to change the waves considerably. So for example, if you remember Morse code, we were using the lines, and we were sending a series of pulses. When we have sound or no sound or a series of impulses, we would know that this will match to a letter or something like that. In this case, is similar, but these pulses are transmitted over the air. But then we have to carry this information by modulating the signal. So this is about modulation. And then when we are going to send these codes, we have to change a little bit the waves, and there are multiple techniques. You see here amplitude shift keying, phase shift keying, pulse shift keying, phase shift keying. This is all different techniques, but in the end, it results in having a series of pulses that will make a codification, a modulation of the original wave, and this makes it very different. So you see now the spectrum analysis of the waves, it's much different. You see here there's a peak. This is just an example of a given transmission. You see there's a peak more or less around 525 megahertz. This would be, for example, the carrier frequency. But then we send some signals that will make certain variations in the signal, and then you see it's not a clear curve. You will have a lot of variations. You see between 510 and 540. It's a bit more clear. That is a lot of frequencies being a bit higher than the others. So this is what happens. If someone comes to me and asks me, oh, José, is 60 gigahertz bad, or 50 or 30, it doesn't really matter, because when we are transmitting, we will cause a lot of variations in the signal, a lot of rapid transients in the signal, and we will cause a lot of variations and a lot of frequencies. So it's not a single frequency like we have in Schumann's resonance. It's a bit different. I hope this starts getting some a bit more sense to you. But if you want, if you have any questions or want to interrupt me to clarify anything, let me know. Are you following so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it's great.
Okay, so another question is about the characteristics of the signal. Sometimes I also get questions about the polarization. And I heard even things like, oh, the polarized waves are not so bad. It's like the sunlight, and they say it's safe because it's polarized. Nothing is far from the truth. This is really much the opposite. The thing is, when we talk about polarization, it's because there is a certain angle, I mean a certain phase between the fields. When we say electromagnetic, it's because we have two components. One is the electric field and another is the magnetic field. And in the first picture you see on the left the red and the blue lines. This is to show how the waves are transmitted, and there is a phase, I mean an angle of about 90 degrees between them. When we are going to send these waves over the air with multiple antennas and so on, there could be some degradation in the signal, and you see on the middle that there will be a bit of a shift in the orientation of the wave itself. So the polarization, in fact, is just a method of recovering the original signal, or could be even used to transmit more data. There are different techniques that we can use for this. One is to recover the initial wave, to recover the signal by adjusting the angle. And another is to send the multiple information over the different patterns. You can even make some adjustments in the electrical magnetic waves to carry more data. So this is much different from what we talk about with the sun. This case, this Polaroid lens is an example. What we do here is to filter a certain component by adjusting the lens in a certain way that will only allow to pass certain rays. This is used, for example, to filter UV rays. But this is filtering. It's not the same thing. When we talk about polarizing 5G, this is really the opposite, is to make it stronger and to make the signal as good as possible for transmission, so it will carry more energy, in fact. There is another technique, for example, to polarize the waves. Can you
just
have a
briefly
question?
for a second, if people could mute, if everyone could mute their microphones, apart from Jose, of course, then we won't have the background noise. If you could all mute your microphones. Thank you. I think it's better now.
Okay, so I'm talking now about the second possibility of polarizing the waves. There is another polarization technique. It's to transmit more data. And this is, in fact, to send more energy, because if you change a little bit artificially the way the waves behave, then you can avoid the interference between the signals and you can send more data, in fact. So it's doubling the problem. So I think it's very important that we know these basic things, because it can really be confusing people. And if people don't know when they are asking us about these things, if there is someone really technical and know how it works, they will put us down very quickly. They will clearly say that we don't know what you're talking about. So my point is, we should try to keep it simple, because this I'm not even making this complex. There's so much more about it. My suggestion is try to keep it simple and to the point that is all electromagnetic waves that are artificial, they will damage us in a way or another. It doesn't really matter the frequency. There are some things that can make it worse if the frequency is higher or the power is higher, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they are artificial and will make bad to us. I think then we should refer to the evidences, because otherwise, I mean, the scientific and the clinical data, because we have loads of information to support it. Then another question I got also is about pulse radiation. In general, all communication systems will use pulse radiation because they send bursts of signals, and then this is what happens. You send a burst of electromagnetic wave to carry the data, and this is a bit different from pulse frequency. This is another modulation technique, and it's not related to this. So this is also important to mention, is that when we receive pulses, this is going to stress our body by changing rapidly from the polarization of the cells. So it's also another bad aspect. Okay, so I hope I covered a bit the fundamentals, and now I'll try to cover the electrosmog and the 5G in particular. So I think this is familiar to you already. Electrosmog, all the electromagnetic field that we are immersed with different devices. So this is not new to you. The point is that they are all bad, but depending on the type of transmission and the source, they can have different effects. There are thermal effects. They are thermal effects that are a bit a mix of thermal and other that are not related to thermal. And then we have non-thermal effects. This will be a huge topic. I cannot cover, and I don't have also so much knowledge like that. But it's important you to know that there are so many ways that they can harm us. So if we try to focus on just the frequency, it's going to be a challenge, because then we start going into technical details, and it's better to avoid it. I have just one example here. This is a patent from Swisscom, and they acknowledge that there is a genotoxic effect from electromagnetic radiation, and is caused by a non-thermal path. So it means that even if the temperature is not increasing, we will suffer anyway. you can then see this link later. I sent the PDF also. Another aspect is how the electromagnetic fields interfere with our cells. So they will cause a lot of stress, oxidative stress, by changing the way the cells work. And here is just an example. It leads to changes at the chemical level, and also it will make some polarization of the cells at the molecule level. By multiple ways, by this dissonance effect or by other things. There will be multiple ways, and this will cause a lot of these symptoms. And this can happen by many different sources also. It's not just the 5G. What 5G will make it worse is the fact that it will allow to connect a lot of more devices. So you see all the applications, the smart devices, and all the entertainment industry, the smart card, and so on. And there is an expectation that we'll get like 1 million connections per square kilometer. This is a huge increase. And then it leads of increasing of the electrosmog. The power density will increase. Another aspect is about the characteristics of the signal. So this is more specific now about the antennas. So you see here, one of the features of the 5G antennas is that they can use a special coding scheme and a special power that will allow to send a signal for one or two users at the same time using the same frequency. And this is by managing the power of each wave. So this is a very clever, I have to say, this is really clever and advanced technology, but it's going to be bad for us. Because in the past, the previous antennas that they call the MIMO antennas, multiple input, multiple output, they were sending different beams to different areas, and the waves would be a bit more even distributed. And here it will create long beams and strong beams, and will serve multiple users on a given direction, increasing a lot the power. And this is how it looks. You see here this diagram. There are different techniques, digital or analog beamforming, but this is what you can expect to see. This is a diagram that shows an increase of the power in a given direction. And the way it works is that there will be small elements that we call arrays, and they are going to transmit these electromagnetic waves in a certain way that will build into a given direction. So each of these elements is that you see on the left is a small element of the array. And then the power is going to be adjusted so that it causes a positive interference in a constructive mode. And then you get this on the right. I'm showing it a bit large here. I think this is important that you know, because when you talk about beamforming, it doesn't mean that we are going to affect just the user. And this is also some confusion I see in some point, is that people may expect that because I'm having a 5G phone and I'm doing a call, it's only me getting affected. But no, this is going to create multiple beams. The only difference is that it's going to be optimized for that user. That is the main difference, but this is going to be very bad for everyone. And the final result is that what you see here in this picture. On the left, you see the power density map of a 5G network. And on the right, you see the power density of a 5G. This is an example in Texas. So you see, because of the way the technology works, we're going to get huge beams in all directions, and then we get more antennas closer to each other. So by different ways, we're going to increase this power density to an extent that's going to cover all areas. Another aspect is the frequency. I think that some people have the opinion that the higher frequencies may not be so bad because of other characteristics, but this is really huge. I mean, we could be talking hours for different ways, and this can affect our bodies. This is just an example. So we have the power density, it's an important aspect. Then we have the beam forming, and then we have the increased frequency. This is another study where you see that the exposure of B to different frequencies, it was increasing the effects in the body temperature, the behavior, physiology, and so on. So this is, it's huge. I mean, there are so many topics. It's not just one single aspect. So what can we do to help or to protect ourselves? I'll try now to cover a little bit here. Hope you are following. If you have any question, let me know. Okay, so I will continue. So what can we do to protect ourselves? So first is we need to choose a mobile phone that has a low SAR. I mean, if you cannot survive without the mobile, sometimes is hard these days. You can try to choose one that has a low SAR, and then try to put it in flight mode as much as possible. My opinion at this point is that we should not use 5G phones at all, not even change settings, because also the phones will have certain arrays inside to adjust also the power to a given direction. So it's really bad the way that the new 5G phones work. So my message is say no to 5G. That is, for me, it's not negotiable. Then other things that we can do is don't use these connectors to the power, the mains, to pass the signal over the cables inside your house, because this is going to transform the wires of your walls into antennas. The wires that are inside the walls are not prepared for this type of communication that are going to transmit very high frequencies. And then, of course, switch off the Wi-Fi as much as possible, or maybe follow the tips from our colleague. Sorry, I don't remember the name, but he seems to be very knowledgeable about this. You can get tips from him. Okay. Another thing is that try to get away as far as possible from these wireless devices. In my experience, if you are about 10 meters away from the Wi-Fi router, it decreases a lot. I measured with my EMF meter, and it decreases a lot. And then I'm saying here 500 meters away from antennas, but this may not be true. It depends on the power also. Each antenna can be transmitting a different power. It all depends on the networks. If someone, some network operator wants to increase the power of an antenna, then you can get a lot more power at your home. So this may not be true. It's just a reference as an example, because I know that in practice, if you are a bit more distant, it will decrease a lot. Another suggestion is when you are traveling and you are carrying your mobile, just turn it off, put it in flight mode. And sometimes I use it for navigation. I just load the route and then I turn it off, and it still works because it has also GPS, like the old navigation systems, if you remember. So it still works. You don't need to worry if you need to use it. Then if you are suspicious that you are highly sensitive to EMF, good advice that I can give you is to buy a emitter and identify first the source of emission before you do anything else. For example, I think someone has already insulated the home, but this needs to be done by a professional. The thing is that if you don't isolate it properly, you can get the radiation into your house by some places that you forgot to isolate, or some things that are not isolating properly for some limitation, and then you can get this reflected inside your house, and it will make it worse. So you need to be very careful and try to talk to a professional so that you can find the best way to protect yourself. The good devices I've explored are these ones. There should be more in the market. There are many, but I put here the ones I trust more. The one on the left is what I'm using, but the others are also good. I just like the one on the left more because it has a bit more options. I can see the average signal and so on, but the others are also very good, and I've seen a lot of reviews. So if you want, you can try to check these online. Now, I would like to give you some tips more, but I need to remember that this is not a protocol for detoxing. This is just some examples of things that you can do, and then I would like to refer to you another document that I sent also by email, and that I think Rhiannon will share to you later on. This is just some examples. And I think that if you have bad problems, you should see a doctor or an herbalist. So one of the things is to stop the aggression. This needs to be done. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to try to recover your body while you are still exposed to these radiations. I use these things here, these sheets for the bed to sleep, and it improved a lot. But I think this should be done in a very careful way as a temporary measure, like a mitigation, and not like a long-term solution. And one of the aspects is that if you come to the point that you find yourself needing this, is because you are immersed with a lot of radiation anyway. So you cannot go out to walk, you cannot go to walk your dog or do exercise or run. So you'll be in a very hard position anyway. So you need to try to fight this problem by either removing the source of radiation, by exposing this to the council or something, or just to move. This could be also an option. I use this temporarily until I move, and then I use, I think, 3 or 4 weeks or so. For me, it works, but you should use with caution. But it will also may block also the Schumann's resonance. So you need to be cautious with this. So other things that you can do to recover after you stop the aggression is that you need to do some special diets and take some supplements. This will be very important. Our body will deplete a lot of the minerals because of the exposure to the EMF radiation, and you need to get these minerals somehow. I did a lot of juicing, and I think this can be also very good. Take a lot of fresh green juices in the morning. Then you need to take care about the refined sugar, the reduced dairy, reduce the meat and canned foods, all things that will, all things that can increase the toxicity or in your body will prevent you from a proper detoxing. So you should also think about getting a proper filter to your water, and then use special herbs and extracts to detox the liver. This was my experience. It cannot be easy for all. But then you can find the document, as I mentioned before, with more details. I'm going just to give you now some examples of things that you have to take in consideration. Is that we are being lied by by many many things, by many organizations. So, for example, if you go to the pharmacy or to the doctor, they may suggest you some supplements that are not good, and you can pay attention to these letters. You see L. This L is a prefix in the formula that means left. This means that is equivalent to original formula, and it's to simulate the vitamins. In some cases, they can even be toxic. So this is really crazy. I don't know why they allow this, but I mean, at this point, yeah, we need to be careful. We cannot trust. So if you see on the right, you see the correct formula. You see D alpha tocopherol, for example. This is the correct formula for vitamin E. And sometimes you may find supplements that have DL. So this is very tricky, and you think that sometimes you are buying good vitamins. You just go to the store and buy something, but the quality of the vitamins are important. This is another thing that I can suggest you. This was a reference I got by a doctor, but I never used it. It seems like a special tincture, some herbal extract that is said to be very good, and I get this reference for you. Then I also tried this one. I like it a lot, Dynamic Health Chlorophyll. I think the taste is really nice, and I felt very good. This is, I think, something that I really recommend to you for purifying the blood and to nourish and to increase the oxygen in your body. It's really good. Then MSM is a sulfur component that is also very needed in our body, and over time it gets depleted even if you are not exposed to the radiation. I think you can try once in a while to complement or supplement your diet. Two other things that are very good is the iodine. I recommend this one, Yodoral. This is sold in UK. I cannot find it here in Switzerland, but it's really nice. And it's high potency. You need a certain dose, but I need to leave this to the doctor to recommend the dose for you. I just wanted to mention that this is important, iodine. And this is also one of the reasons why some people may have problems in the thyroid. And of course, this will deregulate other things. Then you should also take some high dose of good vitamin C. I would say maybe 1 gram. But if you are taking these two together, I put this on purpose here to remind you that you should wait about 2 hours between them, because it may interfere the absorption of them, and it will not make much effect to you. At last, I have these products here because I used more these Young Living products. I use for myself for many years, and I feel more comfort using them. I use essential oils. They are very good to regenerate the cells and also to relax. And then I also use multigreens, is supplement that has also iodine and other minerals. And then sulforzyme is a mix of MSM and vitamin C. So this is what I can give you as an option. Then if you have questions, I can try to help you. But then you should refer to the document again, and maybe try to search a good herbalist. So finally, what I want to say is that you need to be careful when you try to talk about these EMF issues about the frequency and radiation, because there are so many jargon that can be confusing people. And my message is try to make it simple and say just all artificial electromagnetic fields will damage our body. And then if you want to have some detox, you should first try to stop or reduce the exposure, then look for deficits in your diet, because this will get depleted a lot. And then it can impact many things in our body. It can impact the blood, and then also the lymphatic system, and then people can experience the accumulation of liquids, they can even get very thin or very fat. It changes a lot the metabolism of your body, also because of the thyroid. And then I will end here the presentation. Hope you like it, and any questions, let me know.
Thank you so much. Amazing.